Hi guys, this is Lachette from Scarlet Moon Creations, and I'm back with a new type of video. This is the beginning of a series about series. That series are what I read a lot of. Most of what I read are series. And in order to kind of organize myself and also share interesting content, I think I decided to start this series of series. What's going to happen is I'm going to take you through the series that I am already in the middle of, both the complete and the ongoing series, of which there are a lot. Also, maybe a video about series I want to start, though there's a lot of those, so I don't know about that. Alright, so first some stats to explain this whole thing. I am in the middle of 44 series. uh, and I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting some. So there are 44 series I am in the midst of reading. Of those 44, 31 are ongoing. So the author is still putting out new books for those series. They are not complete yet. And 11 of those are completed series. So the opposite, the author has put out all the books that they plan to, I think. I'm pretty sure. And I just need to finish to the last book. And two of those series, I'm not 100% sure about. They are, unfortunately, it's not clear to me whether the author plans on continuing or not. There have been recent releases in the past 2 years, but that author doesn't publish every single year or even every other year, so I don't know. I couldn't find out if they were complete or still ongoing. Now, of all of those series, a mere seven am I caught up on. It is what it is, you guys. I might possibly restart, meaning reread from the beginning, because I had like a little bit of a hiatus in reading for several years. So 11 of the total series I might start again from the beginning. And of those 11, three I might just start halfway, or just read the most recent release before the last one that I read, if that makes sense. And quite a few of these series I actually started this year. I wasn't going to include these, but I decided that they count, especially since a bunch are trilogies, so I can finish those quickly. Now, first, the two series I am been unable to find info about exactly. The first one is the Celta's Heartmate series by Robin D. Owens. This is the first book. This cover is atrocious. Every part of the design that I learned in communications in school and have done in several jobs cringes at this, but it's still better than the average person. Anyway, I think the covers get better as time went on. None of them look like this anymore. But this series is a paranormal romance series. I It's hard to describe. Basically, this is set in another world. The people are many of them are have some sort of supernatural ability. Not everybody, but a lot. It's their abilities kind of run in families, or and so siblings and ancestors will have similar abilities. So for example, there's a family that has the ability to work with plants, and I know it sounds really vague, but they can just magically make plants grow wherever, whenever, however, and vice versa. How their abilities affect the plants varies person to person. But yeah, this is kind of a soulmate series. Not kind of, it is. It's a soulmate series. Each person is, that's the focus of the book, is looking for their heartmate or soulmate, as we would call it. And it's a literal, like, soul bond, someone who is like their other half in some way, shape, or form. And they find it. Each book also, you know, gets us deeper and deeper into the world. They're not on Earth, or not the Earth that we're used to. Um, it's very interesting. There's also, like, they have a hierarchical society. There are nobles, though they don't call them that. I forget what they call them. Anyway, so they have people who kind of marry for prestige, for money, for, what nobility marries for. Um, and then they find their heartmate is someone completely different. So it's very interesting. It's a sweet series. A lot of them have like cat familiars, so that's another extra cute thing. Some of them have other animal familiars, and it's just really interesting. And I love the world building. This would be like not an urban fantasy, definitely maybe a low fantasy. There's lots of magic, not too many magical beings. I know they have the familiars, but they're not like dragons or anything like that. So I think this counts as low fantasy and a little bit of sci-fi, because they're in outer space on another planet. There are spaceships. I don't want to give too much away. So yeah, it's an interesting series. You should check it out. Up to, let me see, where am I up to? There are 21 books in this series that I'm aware of, and I have read 15 of them, I think. Oh, no, sorry. There are 21 books that I'm aware of, and I've read 8 of them. I was mixing up the numbers. But yeah, check out the Celta's Heartmate series by Robin D. Owens. The other series that I'm not sure, if it's finished or not yet, is the Arcane Society. I don't have a book out for some reason. I don't have all of the books. This is kind of going to be a really brief summary because it's difficult. Um, the series is created by author Jane Ann Krentz, and she writes under 2 pseudonyms as well as her real name. And she writes as Jane Ann Krentz for the present tense, and then for the present tense, the present storyline, and then she has a series of books in the Arcane Society that's in the past. It talks about the beginnings of the society, and that she writes under the pseudonym Amanda Castle. And lastly, she writes about the future, where the human race has left the planet Earth, gone to another planet, and created a completely new and different type of society, but there's still the Arcane Society within it, and that she writes under the pseudonym Jane Castle. Now, the Arcane Society is kind of like a secret society, and it does deal with paranormal abilities, psychic powers, things like that. It was started in, I think, let's just say Regency era England, which is what she writes under Amanda Castle. And there are still some mysteries that drift down through the years, and I found it really fascinating how she weaves this story. about the Arcane Society through different timelines. Each series within this world, each timeline is very interesting in and of itself. To find out they were connected was really fascinating to me. So definitely check it out. It's an adult fantasy series, paranormal elements, and lots of romance. There's romance in every single book, so I guess paranormal romance would be the appropriate genre, subgenre for all three timelines. Move Before I move on, there are 35 books between all three timelines. I've read 9. So I would like to catch up. And yeah, let's. That being said, now we're going to go on to the books in a series that are complete. The publisher has published all the books that they plan to, as far as I was able to discern. And I just need to catch up and finish. So there are 11 of those. The first book I want to talk about, or the first series, is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Now, I have read The Magicians. I read, I forget what the name of the second book is. I don't own it though. I just need to read the last book in the trilogy, The Magician King. This is a contemporary fantasy, definitely low fantasy, also portal fantasy. This first book in particular definitely brings to mind The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or the first book in the in C.S. Lewis's series, whose name is not coming to me. Anyway, I hate when that happens. I'll write it here on the screen. So anyway, this reminds me of that. A little bit of Harry Potter. Basically, we've got Quentin and his friend who are, living in New York City. They're in high school. They're about to graduate. School is really easy for them. They're both very smart and very good at school. So they're bored, basically, with life. They don't know what they want to do, or who they want to be with in life, really. And they get approached by a stranger in a very mysterious manner. This is adult because they get approached by someone in the middle of a crime scene that they really had nothing to do with. But anyway, they get approached by someone and offered the opportunity to take a test to enter this secret magic school. Quentin is all for it because he is a huge fan of this children's literature series that sounds a lot like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that series by C.S. Lewis. And Quentin gets admitted to basically this secret college of magic, and his friend doesn't. She fails, she gets sent back. But basically the test is to find out if they have magic powers. Quentin goes to the school, and things go crazy from there. This is all about Quentin trying to figure out his life and his powers and what's going on in the school because something is not right. Like, there's a lot of other students, a lot of like college stuff, but also some pretty dark things as well. There is a TV show. I started it, but I didn't get very many episodes in because I wanted to finish the series, so I want to finish the series. I might go back and read the second book because I realized I don't really remember what happened in that one specifically. So this is one of the ones I'm going to restart but not from the beginning. Next in my series to complete um, is Undead. The Undead series by Mary Janice Davidson. This is a paranormal romance, and it's kind of silly. We've got Betsy Taylor, who is a regular girl, kind of. I don't know how to describe her except vain and kind of a valley girl. I think that's what they're going for in the beginning. A little ridiculous, hence the covers, which are really appropriate. Basically, Betsy's going about her life, except life is not going so well. I think she loses her job, and then this is just a series of unfortunate events. Not the books, but things go wrong for her, and then she runs into this guy and a bunch of vampires. She gets bitten and then turned into a vampire, and then somehow becomes the queen of the vampires and gets all of the responsibilities that come with being queen of the vampires, even though she doesn't want them. So now other vampires now come to her for like political things. I think people try to kill her, to get the crown away from her, and just all kinds of other stuff. Meanwhile, Betsy's trying to get a job, and like I think the only job she could get is like retail, and the whole time she's just really worried about money and her clothes and her hair, and it's hilarious and cute. And the relationship with, I think the guy's name is Sinclair. Yes, Sinclair. He is the vampire who she doesn't want to like, but really is attracted to, and he's actually better suited to run the vampires than she is, so he's kind of helping her out. But yeah, this is fun, adult, sexy, and they're short. I never finished this series. It's not like high on my priority list, but they're tiny, so when I do finish it, it'll be quick. Um, Let me see. There are 14 books and I've read 8 of them. I might restart this because it's been a while. I gave you a really vague, brief synopsis, and I don't really remember. But I might just pick up the 8th book and reread it and go from there. Next is the Census. Actually, no. Before I get to the Census, let's talk about the Grishaverse. The Grishaverse trilogy, or the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I am going to plop that in here. I don't have the books. I read the first book, Shadow and Bone. I enjoyed it enough that I want to read the next ones, also because I want to read King of Scars, which I hear brings the trilogy and the duology, the Six of Crows duology together, world-wise. They're both set in the same world, obviously on the same like planet, but they focus on completely separate characters, and I hear King of Scars starts bringing that together. They focus on different countries, and yeah, so I would like to read that, but I love the duology, the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and Seeds of Storm I'm not loving as much. Like I'm not as invested in the characters, but I liked it enough. I wanted to continue. I read that this year. I might finish that this year, the trilogy. But yeah, so in case you're new to booktube in particular, or YA fantasy series, the Grishaverse trilogy is set in a world that's kind of like Russia. Grisha, I think it's probably more pronounced Grisha, are the magic users, magic wielders in this world. But in the books, we follow a young girl who is an orphan because her country is constantly at war with the other ones that they share land borders with in the north and south. And they also have an issue where there is the fold going through part of their country. The fold is this darkness where monsters and literal darkness live, and anyone who goes into the fold or gets sucked into it does not survive. The fold goes through their country and it's growing. So, young girl, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. She and her friend, her another orphan that she grew up with, they joined the army as they have to, and they're about to go into the fold. They go into the fold, they're attacked by monsters, their ship, and we find out that she has Grisha powers. Grisha powers that are very specific, and that the Darkling, the head Grisha, is very interested in fostering. And so she's taken away from what little she knows, her best friend and the person she's fallen in love with, to be honest, and sent to the castle where the king and the queen live and taught how to be a Grisha, but it's not going so well. And the story unfolds from there. It's a young adult fantasy series. It's really good. Check it out if you've been living under a rock or haven't yet. Next up is The Census. So we're going to take a break from fantasy paranormal things and talk about some historical romance. This is probably my all-time favorite historical romance. I love these guys. The Census follows a family whose surname is the Census. This is a Regency era romance, and this is the first book. I say that because some of the books coming up will not be the first book in the series. But this is the first book. I love it. These are historical romance, pretty basic, nothing like super out of the ordinary, but we follow we start off following the 5 male sisters who are cousins for the most part. This is the story about the Duke, whose name is Devil, or I don't want to call him by his father's name, but yeah, we'll just call him Devil. Devil is the Duke, therefore the patriarch of the family. Currently, he is not an orphan, but his mom is alive and his father is deceased. And he doesn't really want to get married, but he'll do it if he has to because he's the leader of the family. Gotta keep that Duke title. The Censters are purported not to be the typical Regency nobility type guys. They fought in actual wars. They believe in some sort of equality of the sexes, and they don't really like the act that most of the ton put on the English society. So they're kind of like said to be wolf in sheep's clothing. They dress up nice, they go out, they do what you're supposed to do as nobles, but they don't really enjoy it. On the other hand, they're not assholes or jerks. Some of the noble men out there like to act nice and pretty and mannered, but then treat women and the lower classes pretty shittily, and these guys don't do that either. So yes, I just like it. I like the family dynamic. I love the family dynamic. I have read 13 out of what is currently 27 books. I would love to say this is finished, this series, but it's not. So like I said, the first 5 books or so are about the brothers. Then we get some brothers, the cousins. They're all roughly around the same age range. Then we get a couple of their sisters who are not that much younger than them. Then we get a couple of their friends. Then we get the younger siblings, who have now, by the time we reach their stories, gotten a little bit older. And then we start on the children of the original couples. So like I said, I've read 13 of these. So I've read everyone except for some of their friends and then the children. So I'm curious to see if I'll still love it. I've reread the series many times over the years, and I'll probably will again just because. But it's not like I need to remember the storyline, because I don't. Oh. Next series we have is the Eve Duncan series by Iris Johansen. This is another departure from romance and also from the paranormal stuff. This is a thriller suspense series. I talk about it in my recent reads number 4. It's already up, so I'll link to it above here. But yeah, it follows Eve Duncan. She is a forensic sculptor. She takes bones, particularly the skull, and recreates it to find out who that person is. So things sometimes like ancient burial grounds, but most often she works with the authorities to find recent or old cold cases, to figure out who that person was. Her specialty, in fact, is children, and I'll explain why. So when people, when the authorities find the bones, skulls of children, they bring them to her because she's world renowned in being able to not only recreate their faces as they were when they died, but also to age them up. She also does this on the other side of things when families are missing children and they don't know where they are and it's been some time. She can take photos, bring them down to just the skull, and then age the child up. I'm really bad at explaining this. It's totally fascinating things. The reason she does this is because Eve had a child named Bonnie who was abducted. She just disappeared one day, and and Eve has spent basically her whole life and all of her energy trying to find out what happened to Bonnie. She found out fairly quickly that Bonnie was abducted. It wasn't just like she just ran off and never to be seen again. Like, I think Bonnie was 7 when she disappeared, I think. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, I'm at the point of the series where we're starting to find out what happened to Bonnie. So every book there's a different case. They don't most of the time focus on Eve looking for Bonnie, but there's always a little bit in there. Some new clue, some new connection that she makes with some new authority figure and some government agency, or another scientist, or in one particular case, artist, because she's sculpting as well. I like the combination of her job. It's art, but it's science, and it's fascinating. Anyway, this is an adult thriller suspense series, and I quite enjoy it. I have read 10 out of 25 books. I am currently at a point where I think we finally find out what happens to Bonnie. I hope. And then from there, I think it's just more cases. Um, but it's really interesting and I love it. So do check them out. Next up, we have the Bishop Special Crimes Unit books by Kay Hooper. This is still on the kind of thriller suspense leaning genre, but there's also sprinkles of romance in every book. But more importantly, there's paranormal. So that's what the Special Crimes Unit does. They deal with paranormal crimes. This is not like ghost hunters to, excuse me, thing. We're talking about people with psychic powers. Um, both in the Special Crimes Unit and the bad guys that they're dealing with. Sometimes it's not always bad people. I think one case was about a young girl who had no idea that she had powers, that she was affecting and creating these issues. So I was just trying to reach her and deal with her. The whole point is not to let the general public know what's going on. This is the Special Crime Unit is created and run by Bishop, hence why his name is in the title. And a lot of the times, though, they're dealing with murder. Bishop is said to be, at the beginning of the series, the most powerful psychic, and he has multiple powers, and we meet others as we go through, and it's so fascinating to me. I like the character development, um, the talk about morals and ethics and how they use their powers and how they shouldn't use their powers, and um, how do you deal with things like serial killers and other people who are like evil or just bad people killing others or harming others with these type of powers. How do we get justice for their victims? That kind of thing is really interesting to me. And I implore you to check this out. I There are 22 books and 12 that I know of. I'm pretty sure it's done. 12 that I've read, I should say. I'm pretty sure it's done. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Please excuse random noises. I would refilm that part, but I have no idea what I just said. So, please bear with me. Next up on my list is... Oh, yes. Alright, A Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. This is not the first book, which you should know if you've never seen them or heard of them. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I do enjoy this series and I need to catch up. I've got 2 books left, and I'll be honest, one of them I'll be reading later this month, or by the time this goes up, I might have started it already. I have read... There's 7 books. I've read 5. So I've got to read Tower of Dawn, which is the next one, and then Kingdom of Ash. I don't know if I'm ready, y'all. I don't know if I'm ready. But it's a really good series. This is, like I said, not the first book. This is a YA high fantasy series. It starts out as kind of assassin. She is an assassin. Selena? Yeah. Selena is an assassin. She is in the prison of her country, and she's let out because a assassin competition is basically about to take place, and whoever wins basically works for the king as his personal assassin or whatever. So Selena gets let out and she joins in the competition only to find out, of course, there's a lot of other shit going down. Everybody from the king to the other assassins and a bunch of random people in the castle all have their own ideas of what they want to really happen. And Selena is just trying to get through all of the machinations and manipulations and win. This series becomes so much more than that over time. They get chunkier and chunkier. I love it so much. I did not mind the way the first book was, but I'm liking how deep the world goes and how much more complicated everything gets as the series goes on. I don't think there's a character I hate or dislike in this, and just it's just really good. If you haven't heard of this, I don't know where you've been, but check it out. If you have and you haven't read it yet, it might not be your cup of tea, but if that sounded interesting, do check it out. And no, it gets better after the first book. The first book is not bad, but not bad gets much better. The next series I need to finish is also by Sarah J. Maas, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses. Again, this is not the first book. This is the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, and this is where I'm up to. I've read this. I need to get to the next one. It's been brought to my attention that this might not be a complete series, but I think it is. I think there's going to be another series or trilogy that's set in the same world but focuses on different characters. So I'm not gonna worry about that. This is it's A Court of Thorns and Roses. The first book is purported to be a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, it's there. I'm not a fan of retellings. That's why I'm like, it's there. I don't like this series as much as Throne of Glass series, like by a wide margin, but I do enjoy it, so I do want to continue. We follow a girl who, Feyre, who is a human being. She lives in a world where the humans and the Fae are separated, segregated, almost like the worlds cannot touch. If human beings go into Fae lands, they can be killed, hunted down, and killed on sight. Feyre goes hunting. I think she accidentally kills a Fae, and then she goes home, not realizing it, and then the ruler of the Spring Court of Fae comes and brings her over like, no, I demand like reparations or whatever. He doesn't kill her, but he tells her she has to stay with him in his castle for a certain amount of time, doing penance basically. And then she starts finding all this stuff out about the land of the Fae and starts questioning her own life in the human world, and things go from there. There is a lot of romance in this. I think this is supposed to be YA. I'd say it's at least new adult, if not adult. There's sexy times all through this, if that matters to you, and some violence, particularly towards the end. And the next book definitely has more. This book, in particular, has lots of sex and violence. So, do what you will with that. And I think there's 4 books, and I've read 2 of them. So, yeah. The next series I would like to finish up is the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. I don't currently have a physical book, even though I'm reading one. Let's see, I've read 4.5 books, let's say 5, because I'm literally 97% through the audiobook of the 5th book. So I'll finish that as today, the day I'm filming this. Um, the series follows the Witcher Geralt as he is going through some things. A Witcher is a person hired to kill monsters, vampires, and all kinds of things that you have and have not heard of. The first 2 books in the series are both short story collections, and then the other 5 books are novels, and they're good. It's different than your usual American or even English fantasy series. These are fantasy. Um, Andrzej Sapkowski is Polish, so the books are originally written in Polish, and reading the translated ones. This is the series that the video games are based off of. These books are kind of like the prequel to the video games. They did come out first, and then the video games were made, and it's Geralt's life afterwards. And yes, there's a Netflix show coming out. There are 7 books in this series. I'm, like I said, up to book 5. Geralt the Witcher is the main character. That's his life, being a Witcher. He has no choice, really. He was taken as a child, or given as a child, to the Witchers, because he's not the only one. And they do magical spells and also scientific experiments and potions on these children's bodies, as well as teaching them how to fight so they can become witchers. I guess it's like a witcher school. The other main characters are Yennefer, who is a sorceress. I didn't want to say the wrong word. She is a sorceress, and so she has a relationship with Geralt. On top of that, there's also Ciri, who is a child of destiny with a connection to Geralt as well. I love the secondary characters. I don't love this series. I started reading it this year as part of the read-along with Elliot Books. I'm behind because, of course, I get the books from the library. But it's interesting. It's different. They're kind of slow starts each book, but then start to pick up as action gets deeper and more prevalent. There's a lot of political maneuvering going on as well. Siri is really, really interesting, and I think Sapkowski does a really good job with like this point of view and voice. So check them out if you haven't. The next series that I want to complete is the Soleus Series, the Parasol Protectorate by Gail Carriger. I started this series this year, and I quite enjoy it. I only read the first book. I'd say this is like paranormal romance meets historical fiction. And basically, we have a character who was born without a soul, and she's living in Victorian London. And this is a world where vampires and werewolves are known to human beings, and even beyond that, they are a part of everyday society at various levels, to the point where Queen Victoria has a political assistant, if you will, because I'm forgetting the word, from both races in her court. So it's very interesting to see how this goes. It's also hilarious. I am 100% here for the romance. I can't wait to see how it continues because it's funny as well as sweet and sexy. And I'm 100% here for it. I've been wanting to try this series for a long time, and I finally got around to it, and I do not regret it at all. So as far as I know, there are 19 books, and it's complete. I've only read one though, so wish me luck. So far, the books are small though. Almost done though. Now, the next book, the next series that I would like to complete is the Rock Kiss series by Nalini Singh. This has 5 or 6 books in it, depending on if you include the extras, which I will, because I want to read them. I've only read one book, and I read that this year. So I started this series this year. This is a contemporary romance series following a rock band and their various members and the relationships. And I was a little hesitant with the first book. The first half or so was kind of cliche in a bad way. To an extent, there were some things I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then they seemed like they were gonna go to be very chauvinistic and disgusting, and that might turn out not to be. So I appreciated that. She purposefully veered away from those things while still keeping it fresh and sexy. Second half of the book did away with that for the most part. Like, a man could be, confident and sexy without putting everyone else around him down. And I appreciate that. A man could have an argument or disagreement with a woman in a relationship or how their relationship is going without manhandling her or trying to force her to do things that she doesn't want to do or she's not sure about. The same with the woman. Like, she could be unsure and timid and even a virgin without, like, being a doormat. So I liked it. I want to complete this series. Next up, my last book that I'll talk about is the Lightbringer Series by Brent Weeks. This is a high fantasy series, and I read the first book, when it came out, basically, because I liked his Night Angel trilogy. I love it, actually, and I wanted to read more. So when the Black Prism came out, I jumped on it. I own it. I just couldn't find it right now. But then I didn't read for a while. Last year I attempted to read the second book, and I forgot basically everything except for the plot twist. So I need to start over from the beginning. The last book just came out, I think, last month or the month before, somewhere between August and October. So there's 5 books in this series. 5, just 1 5. 5 books in this series, and I've read one. I want to continue. This is a high fantasy series set in a completely different world where color is what powers the magic, and those people who have magic are able to wield the powers of a certain color, except for the ruler of this world or this nation, who is the prism, and the prism is able to control all the colors on the spectrum, or the lights on the light spectrum, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of political intrigue. There's definitely some character development. I like the social things going on there, even though there's some dark stuff in there. I don't love every character, but they're interesting and multifaceted and very rich in depth. So, like, it seems accurate. If this world was real, these are kind of realistic people within it. And that is where I'm going to end this video. There are a couple of more series that I would like to continue, but they're not as high priority. And I don't want this video to be super long. Um, Let me know what you think about any of these series. Have you read them? Do you have any thoughts that you would like to share with me? Any advice? What do you think I should prioritize as far as finishing? Yes, some are super long, but that's okay. I love series for a reason. You'll see in my next video the ongoing books, the series that are still being written as we talk, that I love really long series. I'm not afraid of long series. So that's not a problem for me. Let me know if any of these series you think I should put, like I said, a higher priority. What do you like? What do you not like about them? Let's talk. That's why I'm here on BookTube. Let me know in the comments. I will respond because I want to talk. Thanks so much for watching. You can be my friend on Goodreads. The link is down below, as is my Twitter account. Those are the two main places I talk about books. I do talk about books in my Instagram stories as well, so you can follow me on Instagram, link below. And if you would like to support me, you can buy witchy bath and body stuff in my Etsy shop, which is linked down below. There is a 10% off discount code included, so get you something for this holiday season. Look out for the sales, which are coming soon. And that is it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.